So rashes or eczema. I pointed my arm because a good friend of mine gets it all over her arms, one of the cable reps. So what do you do in homeopathy for this type of a problem?
It's a constitutional consult, so it's coming in and seeing when it started. Was there an etiology? Was there a point where something happened and that's what triggered it? There's also an association between asthma and eczema. And so you see suppressants of steroidal use on either one, and you can see one will push out into the skin and one will push back into the lungs. Okay. So we treat the individual, and there's a few specific remedies that might have an affinity towards eczema, and then it's really what is a remedy that has the entire picture of that individual.
Okay, and what are some things people can do if they have eczema? Like what are some of the first steps?
Well, you've got to get your gut bacteria balanced, and so you want to probably get off of gluten and sugar as soon as possible because that can make it worse. And then I would start using some dietary antifungals. I've found that fungus and yeast overgrowth can be the root cause of eczema, so start getting things in your diet like garlic and oregano on a daily basis.
Where can they find this information, by the way? Like, is this something on both of your websites that gives them information about this?
Sure. TheWholeJourney.com has got a ton of information on digestive health, on skin health, and Willow has a whole homeopathic protocol.
Okay, so if somebody has
balancingyourhealth.com.
rashes, right? Skin problems, things like that. So you mentioned, so they have to look at what's going on in their body. Like look at food sensitivities. So they have to, like you mentioned, get rid of gluten. Dairy's probably not a good idea either. And soy, not a good idea. So they might have to wipe those out if they
gluten, dairy, corn, soy, sugar.
Okay, so get rid of those.
Genetically modified foods.
Get rid of those, and your body works better and is able to fight off that inflammatory response or whatever that's going on with that.
Yeah, make sure
Plus, you have herbal remedies, supplements to take in combination with this for these type of situations.
It's individualized, so it's really you have to have a consultation for anything as chronic or something that's coming out in this way, such as eczema.
You know, we've worked with over 4,500 people on their gut health in the last year and a half with our Gut Thrive program. When we get them off of gluten and dairy and we start to rejuvenate the gut, at least 10% of them have eczema, psoriasis. You clean up the gut, it goes away. It's pretty incredible. That's hundreds of people, hundreds of cases now not having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I've seen it with newborns, actually. And I see eczema, and homeopathically, the mom may already have removed those items from their diet, and so the breast milk is clean of that, and then it still needs a homeopathic remedy, and those babies are free of the eczema.
That's nice. You know, I was telling you, off camera that I have a friend, Janine Selby, who she doesn't mind me mentioning, Time Warner, and she had this bad eczema on her arms her whole life. And she was taking these anti-inflammatory medications. I don't even know what they were. So she met some nutritionist, and the nutritionist told her, get off of gluten, soy, and dairy. And 2 weeks later, it's gone. And to this day, she says it's never come back.
Beautiful.
And so, but
Simple
so
as that, right?
these are common things that for some people, it's like that much of a miracle. Go ahead.
Well, Willow being a homeopath, I learned some things from her, and calendula really being a great homeopathic remedy. When people are detoxing, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. If you're not going to be detoxing enough through the bowels, it's going to come out through the skin. And so we use calendula very successfully topically to control those rashes when that's actually happening. Now, it's a beautiful marriage, nutrition and homeopathy.
There are some people that just don't put the connection between what they eat and what it is. My son, for example, I have a 14-year-old son, and this is like an ongoing argument. And, it's like rashes or pimples or whatever, especially 14, and he has good skin. But I say, well, a lot of it has to do with what they eat. Oh, Dad, you've got to be kidding me. This has nothing to do with what they eat. Another gal, who I have a first cousin, and she wants to get better, right? And we call it the Barbara Bush syndrome. I've talked about it on the show. And that is Barbara Bush, who had gray hair, and she looked just like her mother. And she looked like the first George Bush's mother. Right. And so they brought in a consultant, and I don't know if you've heard this story, but it's a Barbara Bush syndrome, and so many people have this. And that is, so they came in for an image consulting because they said, you look old, and he was running for president. So she comes in. She says, okay, look, I know what I'm here for. I'm not going to change my hair color. I'm not going to change the way I dress. And I'm not going to wear makeup. But I'll do whatever you want to say. I'll do whatever you want to do, right? So she really wasn't willing to change. And just like I have a first cousin, and with them, it's like, well, if I can't eat gluten, soy, or dairy, I'm not interested. But yet they'll lay in bed and be sick most of their lives.
And that's a whole other rabbit hole
and
to
the
go
only thing
down.
I could think of is they don't believe it. If they believed it, that it would work, they would probably do it. But I think they don't believe it.
Yeah,
What's your take? Like how they don't put the connection between eating and their problems.
It's multidimensional. Sometimes there's value, perceived value in staying sick in terms, right, of like what the world expects you to do. How would your life change if you got healthier?
Yeah.
How would your responsibilities change? You know, we get used to playing certain roles, and whether, you know, on the surface we say, I want to get better, but it's looking into the subconscious. And again, that's a great use of constitutional homeopathy. It's like, I want to get better, but I won't make any changes. Hey, maybe they can at least take homeopathy, and then we can shift the belief system,
gets us started.
and then they're willing to make the changes.
And I told my cousin, he goes, what kind of life is that? I go, that's how I eat. I mean, and Mark Hyman this morning, I'm listening to him, he has a 10-day detox. And then at the end he says, I got to tell you something. This 10-day detox is how I live my whole life.
Right.
So it's like a forever detox, right?
Yeah.
And it's just basically eating, you know, clean, lean, you know, fish or proteins and vegetables.
There's another component to that I've seen a lot is fear that if it doesn't work, if they never do it, then there's always that idea that they can fall back on it at some point in their life if it gets really, really bad. But if they do it and it doesn't work, there's a fear of then what?
Right.
Oh, really? So you hear that?
I have. Yeah.
Like if this doesn't work, then
If
what?
that doesn't work, then what? So I'm just not even going to do that because that'll be a whole nother ball of wax that
Now,
I'm not ready to handle.
by the time they get to you two, they've researched, they've heard about you, they have friends, references that these two are good, they get the job done. But are they still skeptical when you meet them? Like, are they still resistant to change their diet, their lifestyle, take the supplements? Do you find that?
Yeah. Parents especially with their kids.
That's a different story, parents with kids, and it gets to be very personal. By the time they get to me with the work that I do, they've tried many doctors, maybe many other nutritionists, and they're kind of at that place where they're willing to acquiesce and like, listen, it didn't work, I'm tired of spending all of my time, money, and emotional energy, I'll do it. And they do it, and they get the results.